As Phantom Nightmare prices start to solidify, we're actually seeing a certain archetype's prices rise from the ashes as players are looking to the future meta decks as well as certain TCG exclusive announcements. And it is because of these preparations we're seeing a certain card's prices spike through the roof, and many players should be expecting to see many of its support cards follow suit. And it is because of these reasons we are bringing you the Veidos Market Watch. Now, the first card on today's Market Watch is Veidos, the Eruption Dragon of Extinction. We have seen quite the price spike in this card. Earlier in the March, we saw it was about $16 a piece. As soon as it touched that a little bit, about 14 and some change, it went right up to about $20 a piece. And now, right overnight, at that $20 price tag, it shot right up to $30. And you better believe we've actually seen quite a few sales at that $30 price point. But since then, we've actually seen some of the price wars bring it back down to $25 to $26 a piece. And now, for the players curious as to why we saw such a price hike, there are actually two reasons for it. And now, since this is actually a TCG exclusive archetype, we are expected to see more support given to this archetype in just the weeks to come, because with Legacy of Destruction being released to the TCG, these archetypes will be leaked to us closer to its release. So given that it is almost guaranteed for Ashen to receive more supports in just the weeks to come, it should be a surprise to no one that the price of Veidos will be going up as well. And then for the players who are kind of speculating if this is kind of a new bottom for Veidos, I just want to add that seeing how fast this card transitioned from $20 to $30, it's a little scary kind of holding out right now in case that any of these Ashen support cards are actually good. And then not only that, but players have been looking to the OCG metagame and realizing that Tenpai is going to be a deck that is actually formidable in the metagame in the TCG. And a lot of this is thanks to their field spell card, Brimming Sangen Maynard. Like many field spells we're actually used to, Maynard does add a level of consistency to the Tenpai deck, but it has a twist. And we're actually seeing this with a lot of the future field spells coming out, that it adds a level of protection to the Tenpai deck during their main phase 1. So this actually allows that Tenpai deck free combo in the main phase, and then as many players are aware, once the Tenpai deck goes into the battle phase, it is game over. So players are actually looking to Veidos, the Eruption Dragon of Extinction, as a potential out to the Tenpai deck. And that is because with Veidos' quick effect, you can destroy one field spell on the board by summoning him to the opponent's field. And then since this is a quick effect, you can actually change this to the Tenpai field spell, destroying it, cutting off their consistency, and this will also leave the Tenpais vulnerable during their main phase 1. And for these reasons, a lot of players are preparing themselves with their copies of Veidos, the Eruption Dragon of Extinction, not only on the off chance that Ashen gets good support, which it probably will, but it is actually a good option to be opening against a lot of these up and coming meta decks. But Veidos' main ability, the one it is essentially renowned for, states that once it is sent from the opponent's field to your graveyard, it will destroy all monsters on the board. So this will allow players not only to add a level of interruption in the future meta games, but Veidos being a board wipe once it's sent to the graveyard will keep players from using it, as well as it being just detrimental for them just to keep it on their board. But let this be a warning call for the players who have not picked up their copies of Veidos yet, that if you wait too long, your chances will be extinct. Now the second card, and sticking with that Ashen archetype, is Priestess of the Ashen City. Now, Priestess has seen an increase in price, but nothing quite as drastic as Veidos. For a while now, it has been sitting at just about $5, $6 a piece, nothing too much. It really hasn't dropped under $5 a piece, especially once you're talking about that shipping. So now that we've seen an increase of it to about $7, maybe $8 the lower you go, it's really like a $1 or $2 increase for the Priestess. So Priestess of the Ashen City is an obvious choice for players to be picking up, especially if they're expecting new support coming down the pipeline in Legacy of Destruction. And much like we saw with Scareclaw and Rykard being such a cheap card in the beginning and then spiking just to such heights, it would not surprise me a bit if we do see a very similar trend with Priestess of the Ashen City. Again, we are guaranteed more support in the future, and even if one of those support cards puts this deck into the meta scene, you better believe the price of Priestess will shoot well above $7. And now the last of the Ashen cards we'll be discussing today is Awakening of Veidos. And unlike the first two, this card has not seen much of an increase. I mean, maybe like $1 or like 50 cents or something like that, but nothing to really be complaining about. They are sitting at about $3.50, maybe $4 a piece, but they really haven't been selling for much higher than that. But Awakening of Veidos is one of those cards for players to be picking up right now, especially if you're wanting to get ahead of the curve of the Ashen support, because not only does Awakening allow you to place the Ashen field spell in either player's field zones, but it then allows you to add the Veidos directly from the deck to the hand or any of your level 5 or higher Dark Pyro monsters. And the interesting part of Awakening of Veidos is actually kind of the downside effect it has, where it states for the rest of the turn after this card resolves, you cannot special summon from the deck or extra deck except Pyro monsters. So that is actually a signal to many players that we are definitely going to be seeing quite the support given to the Ashen archetype and potentially even some extra deck support. So again, to the players who are waiting to be picking up your Ashen support, the wait is over. Now is the time. And now this next card was actually a staple just a few formats ago, and that is Dimensional Bearer, the Quarter Century Secret Rare. Now, Dimensional Bearer was staple just a few formats ago, but since we have just been in a Tier 0 Link format, its uses have been non-existent. But as we mentioned in our most recent video, the top 10 cards to be picking up for March, Dimensional Bearer is going to be a renowned counter to the Tenpai deck that's going to be released to the TCG. Not only that, but we're actually seeing many archetypes other than Tenpai are being released that are counterable through Dimensional Barrier. And that is why Dimensional Barrier as a Quarter Century Secret Rare is an easy choice. And now, in regards to the prices, much like other Quarter Century Secret Rares, they were a little bit higher at one point, have kind of dropped down, but have been slowly bubbling back up. Dimensional Barrier at its lows were about $14 a piece, and if players have been kind of keeping track of cards such as Summon Limit's Quarter Century Secret Rare, we saw that card spike from 14 all the way up to 30 plus. So for players who are trying to get ahead of the future metagames, bling out their deck, hopefully not spend as much money, Dimensional Bearer might be a card to be looking to be picking up sooner rather than later. Because as we see with these Rarity Collection cards, once they take off and the hype hits, so far we have not seen a lot of these prices go back down. And again, with this card being kind of a one-stop shop for a lot of players' side decks, going against decks like Tenpai, Branded, or even things like Gimmick Puppet, Dimensional Barrier is definitely a card that will be seeing play in the future. And then our second to last card is another Quarter Century Secret Rare, and that is Tour Guide from the Underworld. Now, Tour Guide was exceedingly popular whenever the Unchained did manage to get more support given to them, and we've actually seen more Fiend support given to the OCG in the form of Fiendsmith, and that actually had a lot of players eyeballing Tour Guide as a potential starter for those combos. But even with that, we've not seen much of a price increase. But again, since we've been in a Tier 0 meta, we've actually been seeing the price of Quarter Century Tour Guides drop all the way from about $24, $25 down to that nice $20 mark, and for a few sales even a little bit under. So right now we're actually seeing Tour Guide kind of flatlining out at a bottom of $21, $22, maybe $23 with a few of those shippings in there. But for a Quarter Century Rare Tour Guide, honestly, that's not that bad. And we've actually seen a lot of other meta staples such as Nibiru, Infinite Impermanence, even things like Ash Blossom just completely spike out of their mind for their Quarter Century Rare secrets. So it would not be out of hand to assume that once Tour Guide sees a little bit more popularity in the metagame, that these Quarter Century Secret Rare copies will be harder and harder to get a hold of, and that will definitely see an increase in its overall price. So for the lovers of Tour Guide out there, or just Fiend support in general, definitely equip yourselves with these very budget versions of nice Tour Guides while you still can. And guys, before we go into the last card, if you're getting anything from the video, do smash that subscribe button. We're about to hit monetization, and I super appreciate all the support we've been given, and definitely give some love to the Twitter. But let's get right into that last card. Now, this last card on today's list is kind of following suit with that anti-Tenpai meta deck kind of feel, and that is Arch Nemesis Escados. Now, for the players who were familiar with Arch Nemesis Protos that was plaguing the format during the Sword Soul meta, Escados is actually its brother that works with types. So by banishing 3 different types from your graveyard, you're allowed to summon it, and then you can declare one type, destroy all of that type on the board, and then until the end of the next turn, neither player can special summon that type. So given that we're actually seeing these link climb decks, even the Snake Eye builds, being able to go into multiple types through their turn and through their combos, Escados would be an easy add-in and quite the drop during the end of a combo line, essentially cutting off the summon of all the opponent's creatures of that type. And since we're seeing decks like Tenpai primarily lean into a single type of dragon, cards like Escados will definitely see a lot of hype and amazing play tests against these meta decks. And the best part, it's extremely cheap. We've actually seen Escados just drop in price as the year has proceeded. You know, honestly, this card, it was spiked up past $10, sank back down to about 2 or 3, spiked back up to 7s, and then has slowly made its way back down to $3 and some change, maybe $4 and some change. So just for about $4, you can get yourself a single copy of Arc Nemesis Escados. And again, this is for that ultra rare from Eternity Code. So if you want another boss monster to be adding to your combo line and your deck can definitely afford it, or maybe even search it out, then the Arc Nemesis is definitely that card to be looking forward to as the format progresses to the Tenpai Dragon. So do be picking up your copies of the Arc Nemesis sooner rather than later before we go into this Tenpai Dragon format. And guys, that is the Veidos Market Watch. And if you got anything from this video, or you see your way back to the channel often, then do smash that subscribe button. And for all those who have, we really do appreciate it, but definitely share the videos with your friends to get the word out. If you haven't yet, do follow me on X. We do a lot of exclusive content on there, and do be looking out in the future for some of the live streams that we're definitely going to be doing. But as always, guys, hit that sub button. But most importantly, stay safe, have a good night, and suck it, nerds.